Thank you for tuning in to the I Test Football Podcast, a football podcast by fans for fans. I'm Stan Olson, sitting next to my co-host Cody Potter. And today we're going to do an off-season outlook for the NFC West, and we're going to start by doing a quarterback and coach rankings and going down the list, comparing teams, off-season moves, whether it be trades, signings, departures, and then we're going to do a little bit of a draft insight. But we want to start out by just doing a little ranking about the coaches and the quarterbacks, and I think we can start with the coaches. And if Cody, who do you got number one?
Number one for me in the NFC West, I have Kyle Shanahan. I know that might not be a national pundits top pick for that division because Pete Carroll's won a Super Bowl. So a lot of times coaches are ranked off of what they've done already and success wise. But Kyle Shanahan as a coordinator has had a ton of success. He's been to a Super Bowl as a head coach. He's been to a Super Bowl as a coordinator. Maybe doesn't have the longevity of a coaching career like Pete Carroll, with the USC days. But I like Kyle Shanahan. That's always kind of been a guy that might be a little biased for me. But, I got Kyle Shanahan as one.
I agree. I have Kyle Shanahan as my best coach in the division, too. Not only that, also, I think when it comes to just total success when it comes to like having a scheme,
right? Overall X's and O's.
Yes, that's why I have him as my number one over basically a guy like Sean McVay, who I think you could almost say has a similar style of coaching.
Right. I think Kyle Shanahan has mastered the system to where Sean McVay is trying to innovate his own modern day touches to that type of scheme because he was very much from that Shanahan coaching tree. Actually, in that division, I have Sean McVay as my 3, with Pete Carroll as my 2. I don't know really where you had those, but
I originally had Pete Carroll at number 2, but I think going in, if you're broadcasting maybe the 2021-2022 season, I have McVay over Pete Carroll, and I'm going to tell you why, because I feel like I have to defend myself on this one. I think Pete Carroll is a great motivator. I think players generally just love playing for Pete Carroll. But
at least the history of...
Yes, but when I think it comes to developing and having superstar players on the team, I think Sean McVay is better. I think he has a little bit more better of a football mind for maybe...
For where the game is heading?
Yes, exactly. I feel like Pete Carroll inherited a great defense and Russell Wilson.
I think the thing with Pete Carroll is he had his window, where Snyder was really making really good picks. They were knocking the ball out of the park with the Richard Shermans and the Bobby Wagners and the Legion of Boom,
Chancellor,
Cam Chancellor, and just the cornerback that they would make the number 2, whether it was Brown or
Byron Maxwell.
They had their original window where at that time frame, Sneaky Pete was definitely the number 1 coach in that division. They were hitting them out of the park. They were developing them. He also had a really good staff in there too. With a lot of guys that ended up getting their shots as head coaches.
Yep, and coordinators. He's definitely had a tree. Because if you talk about Belichick had a tree, Pete Carroll's had, especially on the defensive side of the football, he's had a tree. Whether it's Dan Quinn, Gus Bradley.
Right, and now you're starting to see the Shanahans and the McVays guys starting to get poached. Where you got the Green Bay coach. And then you got the San Diego, you got the LA Chargers coach,
Brandon
Staley from Sean McVay. You got Robert Saleh with the Jets now coming from Kyle Shanahan. It's like you see these younger coaches that are really starting to make a name for themselves, and I think there is a lot of turnover in this league, especially in this division. A very tough division. I know we haven't mentioned the last coach on this list. I think we both agree that's it's Cliff Kingsbury. I think the state of that team, and I think this year coming up, man, I think this is a very, very important year for Cliff Kingsbury and the Arizona Cardinals. We're definitely going to dive into that once we get into the teams.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's our coaching rankings. Like I said, I had Shanahan, Sneaky Pete, Sean McVay, and Cliff Kingsbury. The reason that I'm putting McVay at 3 to where you have McVay at 2 is I am very concerned about the future. Going forward with McVay, I feel like there's so much vested in Matt Stafford, and there's so much vested in the fact that Aaron Donald is probably towards the end of his dominating career. Not saying his career. He's definitely going to be a good ball player for a long time. Just like
he's in his prime.
Right, he's in the prime of his career.
You can say the same about Jalen Ramsey.
But how much longer can he be dominant? Like, how much longer can Jalen Ramsey be dominant? Like, how long will Stafford stay healthy? Why these guys are really cap-strapped and why they really don't have the top-end draft capital to realistically, like, replace holes in their team that are going to be coming up in the future. That's the only reason. It's not so much what I think about Sean McVay. It's almost more so the state of the franchise that I think realistically, like, I think the Seahawks could make a deal or two to realistically, like, continue, like, their trajectory with Pete Carroll, to where the LA Rams, I think they are very indicative on, like, really needing to hit a couple draft classes out of the park to realistically, like, continue into their window and, like, realistically retool that team based on the age and some of the things. I mean, that's a top-heavy roster, and we're about to get into that.
Yeah, but do we want to do a quick rundown of the quarterbacks, the way we see it fit as of right now in the division?
Yes. I think that's a perfect place to start.
And I think we're pretty similar on this, like, as well. I mean, right. I don't think there's a conversation to be had at number one. I think it's Russell Wilson.
I think it's definitely Russ. I mean, Kyler's young, hungry guy. I got him as my 2.
He's my 2.
Okay, so we agree on Kyler Murray too. I mean, I think you know, there's still a little bit of a question mark out there on Kyler. It seemed like the end of the season. There was definitely some performance things with Kyler Murray. It seemed like teams were really adjusting to him. Teams that really realized that once they got after him, hitting him, and you know, just realistically, like, well, we're going to get Kyler off his mark, and we're just going to make him run around, and like, we're just going to spy him, like, all game long. And it really affected him. It affected his play, and I think this is the year where he's really got to step up too. I mean, Kyler Murray could be number 4 by the time the season is over.
He could with performance, absolutely, and you know, and maybe in like. One thing that we wanted to talk about also before we really dive deep into the individual teams is that this division is competitive.
Right.
All 4 teams could.
Russell Wilson could miss the playoffs.
Right.
For the first time.
So could Kyler Murray.
So could Kyler. So, like any of these teams can realistically be the 4. One of these teams does have to be 4th place in this division to miss the playoffs. And I think realistically all 4 of these teams have playoff contending rosters.
Well, actually, if one team wins the division now with the extra wild card spot, realistically all 4 teams could make it in, but the odds of that happening are very slim. One of these teams is going to underperform.
One of these teams is going to lose enough games because of the state of this division, right, because of whatever marks are in their schedule, injuries. You know, like it's almost guaranteed that I would almost bet a paycheck of mine that they're not all making it. Like, one of these teams has to lose the division. You know, there's a million reasons why each of these teams could lose the division this year and come in last. Like, right. it does have to happen.
Okay, so if we both have Kyler at number 2, I think we both have Stafford at number 3.
Yeah, I have Stafford at 3, and that's not so much maybe how it's going to end the season again. You know, I think what we're going to talk about a lot on this show is the fact that San Francisco is picking 3rd. They traded up to the number 3 spot in this draft. Mm-hmm. So if we're talking about the quarterback position, the reason Stafford is definitely 3 is probably similar for us, but, I mean, Jimmy G is definitely clearly the 4th quarterback as of right now, before you add that draft prospect. Then if you add the draft prospect, like, no matter who it is, you're projecting that. So, like, either way, he's still the 4th. Like, you've seen nothing. Can't put that over a guy of Stafford's caliber.
Right. Well, right here I have written down on my rankings Jimmy G / pick number 3. So really, I'm just grading the quarterback room. But right. So I think Stafford has potential to maybe even be number 1 when this year is all said and done. Maybe not based on just skill and I want to build my team around Matt Stafford, but I mean production. I could see him coming out and throwing for 4,700 yards this year.
35
with the Cam Akers, and they added Deshaun Jackson, so I feel like that's maybe not a needle mover, but that's interesting. I mean, what's more likely, Deshaun Jackson plays all 16 games, or Deshaun Jackson doesn't play all 16 games?
I mean, it's more likely that he definitely doesn't complete the whole season, but when D. Jackson's been on the field, man, he is a difference maker, and he has shown even at his progressed age, you know, that he can still make a difference when he's on the football field, and all it takes is one season for him to just
UCLA
stay healthy.
Cal guy going back to California. I think it's going to be a good move for him. I like the move. It's a
he went there, and he went there. I mean, he went there for a reason. I mean, players believe in McVay. He has a history with Sean McVay from being with the Washington football team back when they were the Redskins, obviously. But I mean, he's definitely familiar in that system. Some of Deshaun Jackson's best year, actually his best, I think one of his best years was with McVay.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. The familiarity there. I didn't even think about that. But obviously they added Matt Stafford. We're just going to start talking about the Rams, I think, now. And
we're going to add
Deshaun Jackson. Those are pretty much the two moves that they made. I mean, they don't have a lot of cap space to go out and bring in outside talent. So they lost a lot of players. And I kind of wrote down a few names here. And you think about all these players that they lost, including John Johnson, Michael Brockers, Samson Eckenbaum, Troy Hill, an outside corner that played pretty well for
him. Dude, his name came up in the playoffs a couple times. So.
Gerald Everett, tight end, caught some passes for them. Is Higbee going to be able to handle the number one role?
I mean, Higbee is a guy that I'm higher on in the tight end position. I definitely value the tight end spot as a more impact position than I think they get credit for, as far as like where they get drafted and the premium that teams put on that position. But for that team, Higbee is a beast, and I think his production is only going to go up with Matt Stafford. I mean, I think the biggest thing for the LA Rams is you look around the league, man. You get so many teams. Like, I mean, you could even say the Texans like 2 years ago. Like, teams just get to a point where they're so top heavy.
Yep.
I mean, this is something that you'll probably hear on this podcast over and over again over the years, as we continue to like go around. Like, top-heavy teams, man, are realistically 1 or 2 injuries away from being at the bottom of their division.
And you could say that the Rams basically are teetering on that brink the more than any team in this division.
Right.
It's based on the top-heaviness of the roster.
With no first-round picks.
You could say that there's 3 players on this team that if they go down this season is just, they could mail it in.
They could be giving another team a top 5 pick this year in the draft. Like, if injury...
Jacksonville... Do they have, I don't know if they have next year's first.
I think next year would be Detroit's. I think this year's is Jacksonville. This year's Jacksonville.
Wow.
So man. I mean, realistically,
crazy things have happened.
It just happened this year.
Right.
The Texans for Larry Tunsil, they just gave a top 3 pick to the Dolphins, which now San Francisco's making that pick, right. And the Dolphins are picking 6 now because of this trade. And Philly just, got a gift to move back 6 spots, when they think they kind of had their quarterback. But that's for another episode.
Right. And also the Rams, not to be forgotten about, they lost Brandon Staley. He's the head coach for the Los Angeles Chargers.
That's your team.
Honestly, I love
we both like Brandon Staley. I was very excited to see him on that squad, especially
look at what he got out of that defense last year. Look how he dealt with a player like
Josh Johnson got paid.
For a reason. Jalen Ramsey.
I think that's a huge loss. Right. The personalities, the way that he handled personalities.
I mean, this is a team that they have a lot to gain with Stafford, but they have a lot to lose based on what they gave up for him. And honestly, this is a team that we wanted to talk about first because we feel like they maybe have the most make-or-break potential this year.
Right, and I think we both agree that, we're going to do a little rundown of players that in this draft, because this is a pre-draft episode, and a lot of all these outlooks, for the divisions that we're doing pre-draft, we're going to mention some players, more so the position probably that we think this team needs to go. We're just going to mention players that we think fit what they're looking for, and then we're going to explain what the fit is and the reason that we're naming these players for this team. I'm going to name my first player for the LA Rams. The first player that I wrote down was Alex Leatherwood. Offensive tackle, offensive guard, Alabama, big guy. They don't have a first-round pick. We've definitely mentioned that.
They're picking 57th overall. That's their first pick in the second round. They have 2 comp picks in the third. They have a 4th and a 6th and a 7th this year. So really, this is a team that really needs to take starters. They need to fill out their team with draft picks.
Safe picks. And we both have said this time and time again when we discuss the Rams, just in person, off the pod and all this is the reason that I said Alex Leatherwood is the left tackle position is a really hard position to fill. That is usually a first round, you have 3 or 4 guys and you go.
Give up a premium asset.
Right, and they are cap strapped, so Trent White, a premier left tackle does not make it to free agency, and if they do, they tend to not actually be premier. There's a reason why that guy goes. And I think the problem is you look at the Rams and you look at their cap situation moving forward. They are in cap hell, so it's they need to make a safe pick at that position where they can maybe get a player down the line because Andrew Whitworth is 39 years old, man. He can get hurt this year.
Austin Blythe is still a free agent. They haven't brought him back in. You said Alex Leatherwood. I said Rodney Hudson.
Rodney Hudson is a guy that I was definitely high on.
From Cincinnati, tackle. Didn't play Division I, so maybe that scares some people away, but that doesn't mean that he didn't go up against great talent.
No, I mean, he was holding his own against Aziz Ojulari for Georgia in that bowl game.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I mean he was dancing with
Cincinnati's offense was night and day with before and after the ejection. And it was kind of a chintzy call. He hit someone out of bounds. And in college, you're going to get a targeting penalty, and a targeting penalty is a game misconduct, so you're out. But he ate up Ojulari. Ojulari has one move, and I think James Hudson kind of figured that out.
He was definitely prepared.
And Ojulari had 2 sacks as soon as he went out, and then they lost the game.
And James Hudson had a really good season this year. And I mean, for whatever you want to say about Cincinnati's level of competition, man, he showed out this year, and he did play against some really, really, really special, like, maybe you can call them one-trick ponies, or just maybe not higher ranked schools, but dude, like, we're talking about some good players that he lined up against, man, and he held his own all season. Good run blocker. Rodney Hudson, he dances well.
He does. I like Rodney Hudson. But I like Leatherwood too. That's a good pick for him.
Right. They have to address that position, and I think, which leads me to my next player, and it's another offensive lineman. I got Quentin Myers from
Wisconsin Whitewater.
Wisconsin Whitewater, man. This is a Senior Bowl guy. I hold the Senior Bowl in very high regards. And this guy definitely didn't play this year, the COVID thing, but this is a guy that showed out, and he really showed he belonged, like, at the Senior Bowl. And it almost goes to the theme that I'm saying is that they need offensive line help. I mean,
and by taking a Leatherwood, a James Hudson, or anybody, take a center. Maybe Creed Humphrey falls to them. Or
they have to find a way to protect that.
If you go maybe take a safer player, then maybe in the second part of day 2, 3rd round, you can take a little bit more of a boomer bust guy like a Quinn Miners, rather than going somewhere else and then taking a boomer bust lineman and then having Stafford out by week 7.
Right, and I mean, honestly, like, not having the first round picks, you almost have to be like, dude, you're like, your first round pick, man, you almost like look at it when you're picking it. It's like, I need a player that's for sure going to make an impact on my roster.
Right.
So without the first round pick, man, that's why I'm saying like a Leatherwood, like, instead of going with a boomer bust player in the second, which is usually what I would call for in the second round, is like, take that risk, like, throw that dart at the board for a player with maybe a higher ceiling with a lower floor. That's generally my second round aim. But, like I said, with this team and the state that they are, is they have to find a way to make sure that Vandrew Whitworth or some player on that offensive line goes down, man, that they have a safe, realistic, like, ball player that can come in behind that player or maybe even take over.
One thing that, listening to you just talk about taking safe versus BPA, honestly, neither one of us agree with usually trading first-round picks. So when you trade your first-round pick, you're kind of forsake going best player available. It's like, okay, now I need to field a team.
Right. And I mean, and honestly, man, I can give you so many examples of where when you don't have a first-round pick and you go for that, like, shot at the board, like, how many times you miss? Like, I mean, when you take that chance on that boomer bust player with your second-round pick and that's the first pick in your draft, man, dude, like, you really take a shot at really, like, screwing your whole draft board up. Like, I remember we took David Amerson and took Bakari Rambo in one draft in the second round, and, like, honestly, boomer bust, like, guys, and they all busted, and, like, I mean, we're talking about that whole class was just bust after bust after bust. And
when you don't feel better, I was pretty high on David Amerson.
He
had a lot of interceptions. Where was he? South Carolina?
NC State. But that was his sophomore year. Then his junior year, it didn't come out, and that's the only reason he was available with all of his like height, weight, speed. It's just. But again, when you go back to them cornerbacks with them tight hips and like it's just. That's another thing for a different day for a prospect breakdown. That's a cornerback breakdown kind of episode.
Well, I think we kind of covered the Rams. I mean,
another name I do want to throw out for the Rams. I'm going to throw out Darius Washington. The reason I'm throwing out Darius Washington for the Rams is because the loss of Johnson, safety man. Like, Darius Washington's a very similar player to me. Maybe not as a high ceiling kind of guy. Another safer pick where I feel like they have the back end to where they can maybe take a risk at a rookie free safety to come in there and like play that role.
Yeah, him and Taylor Rapp might be a nice little combination.
Might be a nice little duo. I mean, you might not have as much of a drop because this is one of the rare years in recent history where There's actually a bunch of safety prospects that I actually really like. I mean, like honestly, like some of these guys can play nickel corner, they can play like the outside corner, and then like zone for free safety. Like
especially with the game being played in sub so much,
right?
It's like you need to have defensive backs that can move all over the field. That may be why I don't have them taking a Sean Wade or
the Sean Wade was a name that I just did not take because of Taylor Rapp. I feel like he's a very similar player to Taylor Rapp, almost what he can do. But like I said, I just wanted to throw out a Darius Washington's name just because of the loss of Johnson, because I think that is the biggest loss for them. I really felt like they should have re-signed Johnson over Leonard Floyd, and that's kind of weird for me.
I want to talk about the Leonard Floyd signing, and I think they paid for sacks. That's something that you really shouldn't do in free agency.
Right. And that's the only reason I don't have an edge rusher. I would rather them needed an edge with this class.
The second round is littered with edges for them.
Right.
I mean, that would be ideal. Or second, third, I mean, an Ellerson Smith or a...
And Leonard Floyd was playing for money last year. Like, he was definitely playing for money. He came down on a approved deal. He definitely showed out. But again, Brandon Staley's not there. So, like, now you got another coordinator.
Staley didn't sign him. So maybe he's like, okay, well...
Right. I made the most out of this guy. Like, I got the most out of this guy. And he could have brought him in to, like, go across from...
Joey
Bosa. You know, like he chose not to, man. And honestly, I feel like that says more about this draft class at edge, where the Chargers are picking, which is why they didn't go after a guy like Floyd. And I feel like the Rams kind of like I feel like they kind of panicked to where it was like you know we're just not in the range to where we're going to get a good edge guy to replace
him. They just wanted to
Floyd.
make a splash.
I feel like it was almost more like a product of we have to because we're just not going to be in range for a guy that we would maybe get that immediate impact out of edge. Which is why they let the Johnson go, hoping that maybe there's a guy like a Darius Washington. It's definitely a foreshadow of the strength of the draft. But it's again, they don't have a first round pick. They put themselves in that position to have to like re-sign Leonard Floyd.
Yep.
I think that's me for the Rams. I'm pretty good with
the Cardinals.
Definitely a team that I'm interested in talking about. It's the Arizona Cardinals. There's a lot to prove.
A lot of fascination on this roster.
Very interesting team this year. I mean, they could win the division. They could be last in this division and have a coaching change next year.
I think this team might have the most talented roster in this division actually right now, as of the San Francisco 49ers not having their third overall pick quarterback right now.
As far as youth, I'm definitely going with you there because we both loved Isaiah Simmons last year coming out.
Oh my goodness!
The sky's the limit for that kid, and honestly, dude, like I only see him going up. Like, unless they are just completely failing there out in Arizona, they're just wasting a player. They have to find a way to get Isaiah Simmons to be an impact player on that defense.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they lost Chandler Jones pretty early last year, which that definitely set that defense back. They added J.J. Watt. I think what the Arizona Cardinals did this year. Like, let me just break down a couple free agents that I really like. Honestly, I mean, if we were talking about 2016. Man, we're talking about like some premier players, man. AJ Green, JJ Watt. I mean, Chandler Jones. They had him. Malcolm Butler.
Yep.
If we were talking about this defense in 2016, yes, they lost Patrick Peterson. I'm going to get into that with a player in this draft and why I didn't add this player and I went to a different thing. I have a little feel and just outlook on this, but I think they brought in some real veteran leadership. I felt like Patrick Peterson was always like, a premier talent for himself. He is definitely an I-me kind of guy. I feel like...
And also another thing is Patrick Peterson's getting a little older, and I think his style of play is a little bit more indicative to having an elite skill set.
Yes.
Whereas maybe Richard Sherman maybe ages a little bit better because he plays more...
Player.
Exactly.
Yes.
But Patrick Peterson might be a great player to maybe think about moving to free safety.
I mean, honestly, Patrick Peterson was always one of them things that was probably going to move to free safety. Almost like a Charles Woodson thing, where it's like you're so physically dominant that when you play the outside corner position, you were amazing for the first 6 to 8 years. You hit that 30 wall. When you weigh 220 at outside corner, man, and you've been following guys around, your whole career, man, honestly, dude, there's a lot of tape on you. And when you start to slow down, trust me, every coordinator in the league is going to notice it, and they're going to find ways to attack you with different guys, or they're going to line this guy up against you and just say, man, I'm going to run this guy across the field pre-snap. He's coming with me. I'm getting the whole defense identified, and now I'm just going to run this type of route because clearly Patrick Peterson's slowing down with that kind of thing, and he always kind of had tight hips. Coming out. But, he was so fast and so physically dominant that, when he pressed you on the line, man, his hips, it was kind of second fiddle the way he would press you within the first 5 yards, and then you had Chandler Jones getting after the quarterback. It just fit what they were doing before.
Yeah, I mean, they added J.J. Watt 2-year deal. They added AJ Green.
They paid for AJ.
Malcolm Butler. They went out and did a pick swap for Rodney Hudson. I like that.
I like the Rodney Hudson thing. I mean, I think they're putting a precedent on finding out what Kyler Murray really is this year. Yeah. I mean, Fitzgerald, I just didn't feel like fit the scheme. He was definitely older. AJ Green is still a good player. Like, I mean, injuries are always a thing with.
He's not a number one, but he's
not a number one. But I think
he has a place in that wide receiver room, no doubt, with Christian Kirk. Andy Isabella coming back. Andy Isabella could take the top off of the defense.
Yes.
Which might allow J.J. Green just to kind of just work the inside, A.J. Green's always been a great route runner. Like, I just think that's a good fit.
Right, and I think that's going to open things up for D-Hop. I think the fall off last year for Fitzgerald was finally noticeable enough to where teams were really able to key on D-Hop. And not that they still had an answer for D-Hop, but I think A.J. Green is going to give him a little bit more help outside. And you got Christian Kirk and A.J. and Isabella. I mean, honestly, I like what they got weapons-wise, which I think realistically, the leadership of J.J. Watt lining up with Chandler Jones, I think that's going to help Chandler Jones. Like, honestly, teams were talking about, well, do you get rid of Chandler Jones? Do you let him walk? Honestly, right. I still think Chandler Jones has a lot of gas left in the tank. I think J.J. Watt has enough gas left in the tank. Playing on natural grass, I think that was a thing for him. And honestly, man, Arizona's a good place for like an aging veteran to go to, man. It's a good place to keep your body right. It is. Honestly, I mean, it's proven. But
yeah, that's where all old people move.
Right. I mean, it's just
it makes sense.
Right. I mean, low humidity, man. Being out there in the heat, it's one thing. But dude, they're playing indoors, they're playing on natural grass. It's a really exciting thing, man. I think they improved the defense. I think they're improving the trenches. I think.
I want to ask you about the loss of Hassan Reddick. What do you think about that?
Man, dude, okay. So first off, the loss of Hassan Reddick, great pickup by a guy I love, Matt Rule for Carolina.
Yeah.
We're not going to go into that. I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to keep tooting that Matt Rule horn. But Hassan Reddick, man, had a great year last year, man. You want to talk about a value free agent signing this year? 1 year, what was it, $6 million, $8 million? Like whatever it was under 10, it was under 12. I mean, he produced last year, man. And honestly, Hassan Reddick is a very valuable asset, man. A Swiss Army knife, man. A guy that I love. I think that loss is going to hurt this team, but maybe that honestly allows Isaiah Simmons to maybe be the more hybrid player that maybe he just didn't get to shine in, because I think Hassan Reddick actually stood out last year, and it just maybe prevented them from scheming Isaiah Simmons to be able to do some of those things that Hassan Reddick was actually shining in last year. I think it just opens the door for Isaiah Simmons to actually make that breakout season. I think this is the time for Isaiah Simmons to step up. He's definitely not the edge. He's definitely not what Hassan Reddick gives you off the edge.
No, I don't think Isaiah Simmons is the stack linebacker like Hassan Reddick is.
No, but he is.
I also don't think Isaiah Simmons is really a strong safety.
No, he's a Swiss Army knife. He needs to be in the box. He needs to play linebacker snaps. Let him blitz. Let him do everything. Don't ever just put him in one spot. Yeah, you do. That was never a player that you wanted to go somewhere and just say, hey, you're my free safety. Just be in the box. You're going to cover this guy, cover that guy. No, dude, I want you blitzing on this play. Then I want you maybe lining up at nickel corner. Then I want you lining up at strong safety. Maybe one play I'm going to line you up at free safety just to confuse the offense and just maybe I even blitz you from the free safety position and line the strong safety back. There's a lot of things that they can do with him, especially with
nickel corner.
Right, especially with Buda Baker out there, man. There's a lot of versatile pieces in that defense that they should really be able to. If this team underperforms this year, man, I think it speaks loads to what Cliff Kingsbury and that staff are doing. I think we should really get into the draft prospects that we want to.
They have their first. They have the 16th overall pick in the draft, and talk about Najee Harris. Yeah,
I think we're both going to talk about Najee Harris. Najee Harris, I think, is the perfect player for the Arizona Cardinals. I think they need to Kyler Murray's legs are amazing. One thing I back when Marshawn Lynch was with the Seattle Seahawks was he was a physical runner. Najee Harris is a physical runner, and Najee Harris is an even more explosive athlete than Marshawn Lynch was, and he catches passes second to none compared to Marshawn Lynch. Najee Harris fits that offense. We were just talking about the versatility that they have had player-wise on defense. Najee Harris on that offense, realistically, man, if they picked Najee Harris and then brought in another offensive lineman in the second round somewhere, I didn't name one on my list for in the second round in that range, But man, if there was a value offensive lineman to go along with Rodney Hudson, that addition, and you know the way
Wyatt Davis,
man, like honestly, man, you get Najee Harris on that offense with those outside weapons, man, and I mean, I really think that team realistically has a shot to win that division with that addition. I mean, that is almost the perfect player for the perfect team for what that team needs. I mean, that puts them in the Kyler Murray, like, I got a chance to win a Super Bowl in my rookie window. Like, and Najee Harris, man, you just pound him and just run that boy into the ground while he's in that rookie contract and just get everything you got out of that guy because he is a beast.
I want to talk about another player that they could take at 16, and it's probably a less sexy, flashy pick, but if Elijah Vera Tucker's there, I think they need to. They just take a nice, strong look at him and just take a look at maybe what he could be for that team. And
so the teams can't key on just attacking Kyler Murray.
Well, I mean, at the worst, you're probably getting a Pro Bowl level left guard, in my opinion. Who could flex out the tackle when Kelvin Beachum eventually realize Kelvin Beachum is not a long-term answer.
But that's also a team that has draft picks that, like, honestly, they don't even have to force that. Like, if Vera Tucker just pans out and is a Pro Bowl offensive guard, then just draft your left tackle of the future, with a first-round pick. Maybe even trade up for him because Kyler Murray's shown that he's legit. Cliff Kingsbury's won the division. Like, if you got to trade up for a premier left tackle, if you're trading up for a premier left tackle, it's because you won the division and you clearly believe that you have what you need.
I would also like to maybe talk about that defense and maybe talk about them adding strength up the middle of the defense when it comes to front seven. I don't know if they have a dynamic inside linebacker, and I don't know if they have a dynamic defensive tackle. And I'd like to think about taking Jabril Cox there in the second round for him. That takes a little bit of pressure off of Isaiah Simmons to be a cover player. Gives you a little bit more scheme flexibility.
And Jabril Cox is a baller. Like,
that's a guy. Second round talent. I pound the table for him in the second.
That is a guy that we were both high on, man. That was a guy at North Dakota State, man. Good Lord, man. Just what a player.
And I just thought of something. What do you think about Zaven Collins then at 16?
Zaven Collins, I think if you're talking about losing a Hassan Reddick, man, like Zaven Collins, man, you want to talk about upgrading the player. Like, as much as I love Hassan Reddick, I love Zaven Collins coming out, man. Like, Zaven Collins is that dude.
Yeah.
A player that I actually like for that defense for multiple reasons. There's a reason why I didn't say J.C. Horn. I don't believe in replacing a player with the exact type of player that you just lost. I feel like that puts unfair pressure on the player that you just drafted to replace the player that just left. Like, I would not want J.C. Horn to just basically come in and say, "Hey, man, be Patrick Peterson." Like, very similar games, but I'm sorry, dude. Like, I'm not putting that pressure on
Caleb Farley, because that might almost be a destination.
And Caleb Farley with the back injury, man. We want to talk about, man, just what a tough go, dude. Like, seriously, like that is a shot for me, man, because I love Caleb Farley. Still love him. It's just, man, like, now you're talking about second back surgery, dude. That's a hard thing for me to look past. I actually wrote Asante Samuel Jr. because I'm thinking second round.
Second round.
Yeah, man. Asante Samuel Jr. Man, opportunistic corner. You're saying we got J.J. Watt. You're saying we got Chandler Jones, man. You kind of lost that ball hawking ability with Patrick P. You're not getting the physical player with Asante Samuel Jr., but you're getting a guy with, like, loose hips and just playmaking ability like his dad. Like,
you can play the slot, you can play outside.
Yes, man. Just have that guy staring down corner.
And if you're taking him in the second round where Arizona's picking, there's a good chance he might be the best player on the board.
That's
which
really
is even just which makes it a slam dunk.
Yeah, that's exactly.
If you come out of the first round or the first 2 days of the draft taking, let's just say they go Najee Harris, they go insert a guard in the second round. Let's just say they take Wyatt Davis, and then maybe their third pick, maybe they do get that Asante Samuel that falls. That's
right. Oh man, that would really be BPA, which is kind of funny. It actually kind of leads me back to something you were just saying. Is the players that we're naming right now? It's kind of funny that we just have them in different orders or different names, but we're thinking very similar things about this. But I had Cameron Sample, man.
That's a good pick.
The edge for Tulane, man. I'm thinking like third round for that with an Asante Samuel Jr. It's funny because he's another versatile, like, edge kind of guy, like, where it's like the Hassan Reddick thing where you've mentioned Zaven Collins. It's like almost like it's kind of funny, man, that we're thinking like very similar.
Well, they need to get younger at that spot because they have good players and they have good players to teach.
Right, and that's right. Like, you're talking about bringing in a Cameron Sample, like with a with the Jones, and you got J.J. Watt in there doing that dirty work, man.
This team doesn't. I don't know if they have a tight end, and also I don't think that they're going to be in on Kyle Pitts. I don't think they're there.
I don't think Pitts falls.
I don't like Brevin for them just because Brevin Jordan from Miami. Just because I feel like the way you're going to play him, you actually need.
I feel like they have enough versatile.
I have Tommy Tremble. That's the tight end.
They need a block. They need a blocker that can impact the passing game to where Brevin Jordan is not a blocker. To where they have so much going on outside and so much scheme, like versatility outside that realistically, man, you just add another guy. Right. Man, you're just talking about 5 wides going deep, and that's the reason that they can't hold leads now. Is a Tommy Tremble, man, or a Hunter Long. Those are the two guys. Really good blockers where they impact. I don't know if I like Freiermuth for them. I think that they kind of have enough dynamic players on that offense that they don't really. They need someone who can block downhill. Right. They really need a number 1 tight end, and I think there's only one number 1 tight end in this class this year. Of course. But you take your Tommy Tremble, you take your Hunter Long, maybe early day 4, maybe late. I think that's what they need. Is that, like I said, they need the inline blocker that can still impact the pass.
We're talking about this draft for the Cardinals, basically saying that this is a draft where they need to really hit it up.
They definitely.
In order for them to kind of get ahead in this division, because this is a division where the number 1 spot there is there for the taking, and a good draft by them probably puts Arizona, in my opinion, as the favorite to take this division.
It does for me too, but as we mentioned, Kingsbury being the 4th ranked coach, he could very well be the number 1 ranked coach if they win the division. But dude, if he doesn't win the division, he might be fired.
Right.
Like that's what I mean, dude. That's how important I think this draft really is for this team, man. And really, realistically taking the last couple draft classes that they've had and making sure the guys that haven't panned out that they expected to or got value with their pick that they maybe didn't expect to be there, and they went BBA. They really need to get them guys to produce to the expectation that they had with the pick.
Yeah, maybe they look at a Chaz Surratt middle linebacker.
That was a guy I was thinking about over Cameron Sample, man, but. It's funny because I always thought Chaz Surratt for almost every one of these teams, man, except for Seattle. And it's funny, man. He just kept not coming up here. It's funny you mentioned him because he definitely is a player that I feel like fits the NFC West type of ball play.
Absolutely. You want to move on to Seattle?
Let's go to Seattle. We definitely came into this pod knowing we were bringing San Francisco up last, but there's a lot to speak about San Francisco. So let's get to Seattle because I feel like we're going to blow through Seattle. I feel like you got more to say about Seattle than I do.
Well, Seattle, they really didn't make any massive moves this offseason. You could say bringing in a J.J. Watt, bringing in a Matt Stafford, bringing in the 3rd overall pick. I mean,
compared to the other teams, compared to the other teams.
But shopping Russell Wilson might be the biggest thing that any team in this division has done.
It's the biggest story that just
that almost got written. I mean, the Bears made an offer. There was fire. It wasn't. I don't think it was a smoke and mirrors. I think
as we get into this discussion about Seattle,
what is the
Russell Wilson headline and narrative going forward is really going to come out in what we're about to say about this team.
And if Seattle trades Russell Wilson, I'm expecting them to tear this roster apart.
I can definitely see that. If they're trading Russell Wilson, they are basically saying these next couple draft classes we are retooling.
I think Seattle has a bottom maybe 7 roster in the NFL when it comes to just
when you take Russell Wilson off that team.
I'm just talking about everywhere except the quarterback position. I mean,
I'm going quarterback and wide receiver because
they have DK and Tyler Lockett.
DK and Tyler Lockett. I mean, they have pass catchers that really do good things out there.
Yeah.
I mean, DK's your boy, dude, and he's a monster.
Yeah, I was high on DK off the process of this draft.
But I mean, could we say that without Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf could literally turn into Odell Beckham and be traded about 5 times in the next 6 years? because he could be the next guy throwing his helmet into field goal kicking nets and hitting himself in the face. I mean, this guy could lose his mind with Russell Wilson out on that roster.
Right, but right now Russell Wilson's a Seahawk. I don't think he's going to get moved this year. I think that if it's going to happen, it might be this upcoming offseason.
I think this draft class will be very telling to where.
Yeah.
Will Russell Wilson be on this team in 2022, starting for the Seattle Seahawks? And I think that's where some of these names that we're about to mention will come in.
I did want to go through and talk about the players they added, subtracted. There wasn't a lot of players. They did do another pick swap with the Oakland Raiders, and they did get Gabe Jackson. I think that was one of the best linemen that Russell Wilson's ever had on that team, to be honest.
Other Matt Unger. Matt Unger was a stud.
Was Unger there, or was he in New Orleans?
No, they traded Unger They traded Unger for Jimmy G.
Okay, you're right. Jimmy Graham.
But that was early Russ. That was back in the Marshawn Lynch. That was the Russell Wilson rookie window. Hella team around this dude. I mean, we're talking like Russell Wilson was just making the magical play. I mean, keeping him in the game, not making bad mistakes. But when Russell Wilson was in the rookie deal, man, he was just driving the bus, very efficient, but would always make that splash play because Marshawn Lynch and that offensive line were just pounding you down with that defense, just breaking you down, keeping games close. And I mean, Russell just always made that magical play, and he still makes magical plays. But now you just see where they're kind of the top heavy roster again, bringing up the top heavy thing, talking about the LA Rams. Seattle was top heavy.
Yep. And they added Gerald Everett, tight end. I think that's a good move for him.
Dude,
1 year, $6 million. I mean, that's a low risk, high reward.
I mean, took away from the Rams and strengthened their team. I think
they also did it with Ahkello Witherspoon. That's also they signed him from the Seahawks. And honestly, I like Witherspoon. He's a big corner. I think he's going to be a starter on that team.
I think something very telling to me is I know KJ Wright is a little bit older. He definitely was very speaking that he was not going to take the hometown discount from Seattle, and I get that. You're 30, you're trying to cash out. You're definitely trying to get that big deal on your last real opportunity to get that big deal, and you've taken that team-friendly deal before. But I think KJ Wright leaving. I think Richard Sherman leaving. I think, and those guys are business decisions. I mean, like they aged out, and they're going around the league. But I think the fact that Russell Wilson spoke out about this team is something very telling that there might be some things going on in that locker room. I think they're making the trade for the offensive lineman that you mentioned,
Gabe Jackson.
I think that's very telling that they still want Russell Wilson there. They're going to try to appease this guy, maybe like the Green Bay Packers have. But that's a front office that does things like the Green Bay Packers. They are very much draft heavy, and they believe in their draft, and they just have not been hitting them out. They haven't been hitting it out of the park since Scott McClougn was assisting them in the draft when they drafted Russell Wilson.
L.J. Collier.
Right. They've been missing.
Brooks.
They have been missing. But they have done good things in free agency or picking up guys that have just kind of outcasted from other teams.
They didn't overextend for any big player.
Jaron Reed, was a heck of a player for that team that kind of like lost his way in another team.
I'm sure he can go somewhere else and probably pick up his game. They lost Shaq Griffin. I mean, that's something that we definitely need to talk about.
Shaq Griffin for me is a heck of a player. Not a player I was ever really, really super high on, but fit into what that team did. Filled in for the role, they lost Sherman. He stepped in. He definitely did his thing. But I really like the other corner that they have.
I don't know his name off the
I don't know either. 29.
He's number 29. His last name's Reed.
Stud. That boy made Shaquille Griffin expendable to me. That boy showed out. Covered Terry McLaurin amazing when he played the Washington football team. And Terry McLaurin's one of my best route running, just all around wide receivers. Just doesn't have a quarterback.
Yeah.
Maybe he does. I don't know. Who knows with Fitzmagic? But again, another pod. Okay, so let's.
Do you want to talk about some draft picks for him?
Okay.
Now, I think Seattle doesn't have a first round pick this year, so I guess we don't have to go find a name that we don't really know to go give them.
No.
Seattle wants to take Carlos Basham in the first round.
You're right. They don't like first round picks, at least in modern recency.
No.
They, even when they were hitting drafts out of the park, it was
Jamal Adams, the best first round pick they've made in a while.
it is, and he's been vocal out there too. But I went with Liam Eichenberg, and this maybe is not a player that's available for them in the second round with their pick. Maybe they trade up for him, but the reason I went with Liam Eichenberg, Notre Dame, Ian Book. Mobile quarterback, definitely needed a lot of time in the pocket. I mean, this is a guy that on film, man, could really dance, really held blocks and sustained and did not get a lot of holding penalties for the amount of time that the quarterback took to process, observe the field, whether he was going to run or, the late, the RPO type thing where it's like the lineman has to be at that window where it's like, does he move forward? Does he dance back? And it's just, puts him in a really tight position when you've got a quarterback running around behind the line of scrimmage, which is what Russ does. So it's like Liam Eichenberg is a real upgrade, that type of lineman that can dance and hold blocks for a certain amount of time to give Russell Wilson that time to scan the field and make that magic play. I think that makes them tougher. I think that's something that makes Russell Wilson happy. That's one of the type of picks that I think signifies we're going to keep Russell Wilson going forward after 2022.
That would be a good pick. He may not be there, though.
I don't think he's there. I mainly spoke that for
I don't think he gets past the Chargers in the second round.
I mainly spoke that for his skill set.
Right.
That would be a turn the card in, run it to the podium. Liam Eichenberg's a baller and fits the type of way that the Seahawks are built to play with Russell Wilson.
Yeah. Player that I think maybe Seattle could maybe like, Shaun Wade.
I love that. I love that.
Witherspoon, Reed, and Shaun Wade in the slot. You put have Jamal Adams at strong safety. I mean,
like Quentin Dunbar walk. He can definitely fill that type of role. Quentin Dunbar underperformed.
For some reason, I could just think of Shaun Wade working well with Pete Carroll.
Got that mind state, got that mind frame for Pete Carroll like that.
Yeah,
dude, dog.
I also wrote down Dalen Hayes, an edge guy from Notre Dame. He wears number 9, and he just loves to be right near the quarterback when he's throwing the ball. So,
a guy I mentioned was Marvin Wilson, the defensive tackle from Florida State.
I like that one.
I think back to when Seattle was really that dog defense, man.
Right.
They were keeping. They were keeping.
Like a bigger Michael Bennett.
Yeah, dude. Yes. Can play the edge, can play inside, can get pressure from both positions, can do 2 gap, can do 1 gap. Will keep Bobby Wagner clean for once, man. Like last year I have never seen offensive linemen get out on that second level in Bobby Wagner's face ever like I did last year.
Yep.
I mean, Bobby Wagner is a heat-seeking missile, man, and you add Marvin Wilson to that front 7. I really think that helps them get back to what they like to do, just having the scheme versatility of really big, just space-eating athlete, man. And I mean, these guys don't come around very often. I mean, this is a guy that I think is a valuable pick in this draft because, for the range that he's going to go, for the talent that I think he has, I mean, dude, that's a old school Seattle pick, man, right there, man. I mean, you pair him with that Checker Jeremy Reed type guy, man. I mean, and now we're talking, dude.
Right. Well, we kind of talked about the defense picks for him. Wide receiver, if they wanted to bring in another one to go DK Metcalf, Ricardo Lockett's getting a little older. I think you could talk about maybe a Tylan Wallace.
I was about to say, I think that's a skill set more so than a name.
Yeah.
Like they got the DK, big, physical, over the top too.
Yeah.
You got you still got Lockett, so you're still gonna scheme whatever, but it's like you're looking for a certain type.
Yeah.
And in this draft, there are plenty of wide receivers, and honestly, in the future, there's going to be plenty of wide receivers. It's almost like pick your poison. What are you looking for? What do you want out of your receiver? What do you not have? Add this to that unit. It's Tylan Wallace is he's.
I think Tylan Wallace. I think maybe Demetric Felton. Maybe if you wanted to add a hybrid player to that team, maybe just to give, just imagine that they had Demetric Felton in the slot. You bring him in motion, and then you have Russell Wilson handing the ball, and then you got the option. It's just like...
Okay, so I'm going to lead this into this because this is definitely your topic, but I'm going to lead you into this with this name because everything that we have mentioned so far is to keep Russell Wilson past 2022. So this is the scenario, this is the name that I'm going to throw out here. I know this is your player that you wanted to mention for this, but I'm going to let you have the discussion point of this topic. I'm going to throw the name out there because... This is the Russell Wilson not being on the Seattle. This is the opening the door to maybe not Russell Wilson not being here past this season. Sam Mills.
Davis Mills.
Davis Mills.
Davis Mills, Stanford quarterback.
This is opening the door to Russell Wilson not being on the roster in 2022.
If they take Davis Mills, I think that's a kind of an idea what they're planning on doing or planning on being ready for.
Right.
And I don't think that they're going to take a Kyle Trask, Felipe Franks. I think it's them. I think it's either Davis Mills or Kellen Mond. I think it's probably one of those 2 quarterbacks.
I think the only reason I'm not saying Mond is I think that they are noticing that they're having a really hard time building an offensive lineman around a real athletic quarterback that wants to move the pocket. Like as much as Russell Wilson is getting hit, you're going to almost have that same type of risk with Kellen Mond, where it's like I almost feel like they want to get back to what they were doing with Russell Wilson early, where he was moving the pocket, which Davis Mills can definitely do, but it's like he's moving the pocket in a traditional, more drop back offense, where we're going to pound you. We're going to run the ball forward. We're not going to sit back there and just rely on your magic, which Russell Wilson's been doing. And that's almost a similar game to what Kellen Mond is doing. So, if you go Kellen Mond, you're basically saying, we're just changing the name. We're just changing the name. We're going to run the same scheme, but we're struggling.
I'm glad you brought that up.
But we're almost struggling to like protect that guy right now. So like, why are we going to go to a lesser player? I mean, that still needs to develop.
Like being a dead horse.
Right. It's like we're already having an issue with that.
Davis Mills has a very great throwing motion. I think he had a pro day and he just slung it. He swung it.
We're talking about a guy that
injuries, so you don't even need him to come in and start. This is almost exactly where you would want a Davis Mills.
And I mean, we're talking about a guy that's already on the West Coast. We're talking about a guy that Pete Carroll should be very familiar with.
Yep.
We're talking about a guy that if he did not have these knee injuries, if he could have played last year, the year before this past season,
he's first round.
This guy has.
If you're gonna roll the dice on a quarterback,
ran a 4.63, dude. He's mobile.
Like, he's not a statue. He's not Mac Jones.
He has that like Kirk Cousins, like Jimmy G. Like I can move the pocket, play the bootleg,
like elusiveness.
Yes, like almost what they were doing with Russell Wilson back in the day before they were relying on his magic.
Right.
I think that's something that I think that's more the Brett Favre-ish, like that's more what
the improviser.
Yes, what John Snyder was looking. The reason John Snyder, and them guys were talking about Russell Wilson was definitely the it factor, but it was because he ran the traditional offense with his legs, and it wasn't to just do this like zooming around and doing all this magic stuff and like improvising and like we're paying you to be this improvisational player. That's because they had to pay Russell Wilson. Like they're going to basically restart and just. I mean, I think that would be a very telling move for Seattle going forward.
This is going to be an interesting offseason for Seattle.
I think it is, and I think it's going to be very telling what they come out of this draft with is going to be where they're at. So,
you want to move on to San Francisco?
I think it's time for San Francisco. This is definitely how we wanted to end this pod. There is so much with San Francisco. We're going to mention a lot of names.
Well, let's start with the trade. Let's start with the third overall pick.
Kyle Shanahan was part of the RG3 thing back in the day, and his team just gave up basically the RG3 trade to move up to the third pick. Washington moved up to the second overall pick. That was Andrew Luck, RG3's draft. They took RG3. We all know how that went. We're going to name all the names.
We definitely do.
We are going to name all the names at quarterback with this third overall pick. Everybody's pretty certain that Lawrence is going 1. So Lawrence is not one of the names we're going to mention.
No, Trevor Lawrence is going to be a Jacksonville Jaguar. But if he's not, then we're not going to be talking about the San Francisco 49ers. We'll be talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars.
And there is an outside shot that the Jets go Penny Sewell. But for the sake of this discussion, one of these 4 names is not going to be available between Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Fields and Lance. So out of them 4, one of them is not going to be available.
And I would say Zach Wilson is probably the most likely to be off the board, but I also think Zach Wilson is the one that they would want to move up for.
Right. Okay, so now that we definitely agree on that, let's start with Zach Wilson.
Okay, let's start with Zach. Let's just assume that Penny goes 2.
Because when we did Penny Sewell goes number 2. We did a mock. That was actually how it panned out. And then when we got to 12, we said Zach Wilson.
I thought I said Kyle.
Well, whatever. But not because we ever thought in a million years that quarterback was going to be there at number 12.
Right.
What we were foreshadowing in that mock was that Zach Wilson is the ideal player for Kyle Shanahan's offense. I mean, he would be the most gifted arm talent that Kyle Shanahan has ever had.
So, and to sum up the podcast, we are predicting the future here at the eye test.
Yes, that is. In fact, the eye test is a look into the future podcast. That is what we're doing. We're not here for likes for today or like popular takes. We're here
to tell you what's going to happen.
We are here foreshadowing the future for what we think. So maybe it's not a popular outlook right now, but we are breaking down the future.
But in all seriousness, I think Zach Wilson would probably be the best fit for Shanahan's system.
Whatever your $2 horn and stuff.
I know.
With 50 likes. 50 views.
We don't know how to act. But I think Zach Wilson would probably fit the best under the Shanahan scheme.
I mean, that is the RG3 boom or bust again. I mean, because arm talent-wise, that is very similar players. RG3 had all the arm talent in the world.
And I want to go on.
But he also had the injury risk.
I want to go on record and say that I think Zach Wilson has a better arm than Trevor Lawrence.
I think Zach Wilson has the best arm in the class. I think Mond is second, and that's up for debate by a lot of people. But I just, dude, like he's got an effortless release. effortless release, very quick release.
I'd say his tight window throwing is probably second to none of this.
That's basically what I'm saying. I'm not saying maybe he doesn't throw the ball the farthest. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how he gets the ball, delivers the ball,
right,
and spins it to a wide receiver and gives him a real chance through a tight window.
Yeah.
That's what I mean about the arm talent being second in the class. But for what you're saying about arm strength, maybe not second in the class.
And touch, maybe, and when it comes
for overall field. For overall field, he's not there.
Wilson killed his pro day. I mean, I went back and watched most of his throws, and honestly, when it comes to him slinging the ball, I don't have any question marks.
I mean, dude, when I think about Zach Wilson to the San Francisco 49ers, I think this is just as big boom or bust as the RG3 trade. RG3 had an ACL coming out of college, out of Baylor. Had the Heisman Trophy season, the magical, meteoric rise. Zach Wilson, same thing. Throwing shoulder surgery before this year, man, meteoric rise, man. Just put it together. And he had a good season the year before.
Yeah.
But, dude, we're talking about just it all clicked for BYU and carried that team in another smaller school on the rise. RG3, Baylor, on the rise. Just never had a Heisman Trophy candidate. And then they got the Heisman Trophy with RG3. This is almost deja vu to the 2012 draft class, which is something that I've said time and time again. This class reminds me of, dude, and that's why I'm so high on Kellen Mond, because I feel like, I know Chris Sims has been really, really obviously listening to my, our podcast. Obviously, no, he's not. Clearly, he's not. But he can, a lot of guys
might be one of the 50.
It might be one of the 50, but dude, there are a lot of guys that are comparing Kellen Mond to Russell Wilson, and that was something that I got on very early, dude, and it was very unpopular. And now it's starting to take off with other people breaking down this draft class. But I have a higher grade on Kellen Mond than I had on Dak Prescott coming out, who I thought was the best quarterback in that class over Carson Wentz and over Jared Goff. Kind of panned out that way. Maybe not for the Super Bowl success because the Eagles won their Super Bowl, but they didn't do it with Carson Wentz. But Dak Prescott just got super paid, and honestly, panned out. Russell Wilson, again, we're talking about a guy that's been paid and he's had ultimate success, man. I'm putting Kellen Mond in that category, and I have a higher grade on him than I had on both of those two players. And I see flaws in some of these top quarterbacks that I saw flaws in some of the top quarterbacks that came out in that 2012 draft class.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think San Fran traded up to 3 to get Kellen Mond, though.
They definitely did not. So let's get back to the 4.
Leave it to Cody Potter to talk about Kellen Mond.
I'm sorry, man. One day I will.
Kellen Mond deserves to be discussed on pretty much every team, because any team that needs a quarterback should be looking at Kellen Mond.
Dude, honestly, I can see that there is an outside chance, and nobody's even talking about this, but there is an outside chance that pick 32 in this draft gets traded to a team that is moving up to have that 5th-year window for Kellen Mond. I don't think anybody's discussed it. Everybody's talking about him in the 3rd round, dude. But there is an outside shot that some team looks at him and says, you know what, we're going to do what the Baltimore Ravens did with Lamar Jackson. We're going to move up to pick 32. We're going to give this guy that 5th-year window because we're going to redshirt him.
Or maybe trade down from 19.
Hey, now you're speaking my language, man. Now you're speaking my language, because honestly, I feel like there are only a couple players worth taking at 19 that really give you value, and if not, I would trade back into the 2nd round and just get more picks. And honestly, even if you did trade to 32 and then traded back for some more, future picks or whatever it is that you're moving back for.
I shouldn't have said that.
You just totally blew this apart again, man. Yeah. We'll get there. Okay, enough about the Washington football team. We're
Kellen Mond.
Yeah. Okay, so I was breaking down Zach Wilson, basically saying he's a very comparable prospect to RG3. Just the storyline
with the injury,
the meteoric rise, just everything. But dude, we're talking about sensational talent,
questionable leadership,
sensational talent going to a really, really exciting system with a very, very exciting coach that knows how to win and get the best out of his players.
If I'm Zach Wilson, I'm praying to God that I'm going to San Francisco, not to the Jets.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, dude. Every day. Dude, he is in every church.
I think that any quarterback that goes, any of these 4 names, any of the 4 quarterbacks that goes to San Francisco is probably going to be
has a higher chance getting to those.
No matter which quarterback, whether it's Fields, Lance, Jones,
right. It is best case scenario for any of these teams. There is a reason why they were picking 12. That team was just in the Super Bowl.
They know that they have a window. They have a Super Bowl window, and they know that they're probably not going to be picking as high as 12 again.
This is almost Andy Reid moving up for Mahomes. Yes, that is very much what I see here. This is not the Bears moving up 1 pick for Trubisky. No, this is definitely not that. No. Okay, so we pretty much discussed Zach Wilson.
Yeah, and probably off the board.
He's probably right. So that's why
I'd say it's probably a 65 to 70% chance that the Jets take him.
Okay, so who do you think is the most logical of the remaining three?
Justin Fields.
Justin Fields. Okay, I love Justin Fields. Love Justin Fields. I am actually kind of just going to throw this out there because
You're going to say Mac Jones. I know you are.
It is, dude. Mac Jones is almost everything that they've had, and that's the only reason I can see them actually taking Mac Jones. There is some hype building on Mac Jones. Mac Jones is actually athletic. He ran a 4.64.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Allegedly.
Is he faster than Josh Allen on tape? No.
And does he play like Josh Allen? No. Did he have to? No. So we don't know. I mean, dude, like they were talking about Mac Jones's leadership qualities, and they were almost. It's funny how the narrative about Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle has almost turned into Mac Jones making these guys more so than them making Mac Jones.
Just imagine if all the quarterbacks busted. Mac Jones is the baller of them all.
Oh, dude, how like pundits will be eating their words, but like
Pete Traeger and Good Morning Football. Who knew that Mac Jones?
Right, dude. Like Mac, and dude, like. I hate to go with Mac Jones because honestly, man, like I'm not a trend type guy. I think Kyle Shanahan moved up to get away from his norm. I feel like his norm has been limited quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And maybe Mac Jones isn't limited because he can spin that ball, dude. And I tell you what, dude, Mac Jones is light years ahead of what I had as Tua. Had Tua at.
I think when it comes to throwing the ball, Mac Jones is actually maybe better than Lance and Fields.
Oh, he's definitely better. And I think he is.
Last year during the college season, before the playoffs started, I was talking to you about who had the most to gain in all the quarterbacks, Fields, Jones. I'm like, if Mac Jones really comes out and balls out, he could realistically be my QB3, and he really didn't become my QB3, but I actually really thought about it.
I mean, he played that.
Just because he's not my QB3 doesn't mean that he's not somebody else's QB3.
Right,
and your QB4.
And dude, I mean, realistically, man, like it is pick your poison. They moved up because they know they're getting someone. Like, and who that someone is, realistically, Zach Wilson's the outside shot, and they might have that inside information to where they know that it is Zach Wilson, but like realistically, right now, it's out of these three. You said Fields.
I said Fields because I think he's multidimensional. I think that he's a leader. I think that he has maybe the highest ceiling. The reason them all with maybe also, I think he's probably the one that could also maybe just sit behind Jimmy G for a year.
The only reason I didn't pick Fields is because when I watch Justin Fields and what I take away from Justin Fields, the person from his tape, is that dude is legitimately a little bit more solid RG3, but I feel like he is mentally tougher than what RG3 was. I think RG3 was a diva, me first type player, and I feel like that got exposed. Like I feel like teams are breaking these guys down more mentally, and they know these people off the field a little bit better than what they did in 2012. RG3 busted because he is a me first person. Me first player. It didn't seem that way at first. Maybe a narcissistic personality or whatever, but like, dude, like he very much bought into that RG3 hype train. And that is the reason he busted. It wasn't just the injuries. It was the I will not do this, I will not do that. What I see from Justin Fields is a team first guy. So maybe the Shanahans did like Russell Wilson and really did like RG3, but dude, like that me first personality for RG3 was really his detriment, plus the injuries. Yeah. Justin Fields is so close to RG3 that I almost feel like you don't move up again for another RG3 type player. But maybe you do. I mean, honestly, any of these names is worth going at this time.
And I think we should just talk about Trey Lance for a second too.
Let's talk about Trey.
Because I think given what they have on offense, maybe not so much schematically, but talent-wise, I think Trey Lance would almost probably be the best fit. Now, if you think about Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, I'm like, okay.
I'm saying he's the best fit because they actually have Jimmy G, and he can sit.
That's also a good point.
That's why I think Trey Lance is actually the best player, because you can do the Mahomes thing with him. Yeah. Like, his ceiling is the highest. He has the highest ceiling of any of these quarterbacks.
But would you trade him for a quarterback that didn't play?
That's the problem. And that's the only reason I didn't say him over Mac Jones, because you know I love Trey Lance.
Oh yeah,
dude,
I went into the process. He was the one that you liked.
Trey Lance is head and shoulders the guy for me, man. If I'm living or dying, if I'm actually running a team and paid to run a team, man, and I have to select one of these guys in the first round based off of talent and just the magical things that I think this guy can do on the football field.
It's not just him as a football player.
The football player, yes, dude, it's Trey Lance, dude. Yes, Justin Fields is very similar to Trey Lance, but with a lot more tape and a lot more whatever, dude. Safer pick, I think. When it comes to that type of play style. But if you're going all in and you got the Jimmy G and you're going to sit a guy for a year and redshirt him and basically say, I'm going to groom this guy to where maybe they learned from the RG3 trade. Basically what he's saying is we would have loved to have sat RG3 that rookie year, really taught him how to play the nuances of the position from the quarterback position that he did not have coming out of Baylor. Like what Andy Reid did with Patrick Mahomes, saying, you know what, dude, all the talent in the world, but we are going to sit you and we are going to humble you and we're going to let you learn for a year in our system. Show you how a guy that does not have any of the athletic ability that you have, does not have the arm talent that you have, show you how this guy runs this scheme in a very bootleg version of what you have athletically and arm talent wise, but systematically Jimmy G is light years ahead of what Trey Lance is. I think if Kyle Shanahan is doing the Patrick Mahomes thing, that is the guy to do it with.
Now, if Wilson is off the board
if Wilson's off the board and you want to keep Jimmy G,
I think Lance makes total sense.
Lance is the guy.
Total sense.
Lance is the guy.
My thing is, do you trade up to 3 and not start him?
That's the thing. Well, that's
usually I am okay with that. I'm okay with not rushing your quarterback, but you know how the league is, and you know how just with the media, with NFL Network, with narratives. It's I am cool. You draft up at number 3, move up to number 3. The fan base is going to want to see him start.
I'm cool with not rushing him. But I'm also cool that if he beats out Jimmy G, I'm putting him on the field.
Right.
If he beats out Jimmy G, he's on the field. And then I'm trading Jimmy G and getting something.
If San Francisco, in their mind, has already moved on from Jimmy G and he's going to be moved at the draft, or between when we're recording today and the first round of the draft,
right? You got to get
Jimmy G gets moved out, then you need a starting quarterback. And I don't know if I want to take Lance as a starter. I might actually take Mac Jones. Mac Jones might be the guy.
That's what makes this discussion so crazy. Is it's like
also just a whole pot on this,
right, dude? I mean, the variables that go into this discussion as far as the San Francisco 49ers, it is literally that. It is literally saying, okay, Zach Wilson, our world talent, really resembles the RG3 trade. Maybe they have some inside information that Penny Sewell is going number 2. Okay, that's one scenario. Then the second scenario, Zach Wilson's going.
Maybe John just calls Joe Douglas and be like, "Hey, are you taking a tackle or a quarterback?" And Joe Douglas is like, "We're moving forward with Darnold."
Right, because Darnold's not gone. Darnold is still on that roster, and dude, Corey Davis came out and said, "I think." I came here.
Imagine if Mac Jones is a second quarterback off the board.
Oh my god, dude! That just erupts the whole volcano of the football world, dude.
It doesn't sound as crazy right now when I think about it now.
It doesn't, but dude, realistically, the reason we're saying Mac Jones is because we're thinking Jimmy G would get traded. That's that scenario. But dude, if Zach Wilson was available and Mac Jones was selected over him, I think that says more to what I see than to what everybody's talking about, because I am scared to death of Zach Wilson. As much as I love the player, love everything he put on tape, love how tough he was when he was getting his ass handed to him by Coastal Carolina. They were hitting that boy late. BYU didn't want nothing to do with Coastal Carolina's defense, but Zach Wilson was throwing that ball, and he was running around. He was trying to will that team to victory, and they just had nothing for Coastal Carolina, dude. But Zach Wilson is a tough dude. But that arm, man, that shoulder surgery to that throwing shoulder just bothers me to I can't get over that.
It's a shame.
It's just dude, I mean, look, dude, I watch RG3 blow his knee out and just never become the same player. He was just never the same player after that. Deshaun Watson's won the ACL from never being the same magical player that he is right now, or maybe 7 whatever charges that he has. Who knows?
Well, I think we covered the third overall pick. I think it's pretty safe that they're going quarterback. I don't think it's a Surtain. I don't think it's a Micah Parsons.
No, I think they could have stayed at 12 and gotten either. Maybe had an outside shot for one of those guys. They moved up.
It's a quarterback.
They moved up
to quarterback trade.
They moved up to 3 for quarterback, man.
Yeah.
And the year of the quarterback, whatever the narratives are about it, man, they know something or they love somebody.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, like we've pretty much spoke every variable about like what scenario they got.
And if we want to talk about some of their free agency, they really didn't make a lot of moves. They added Alex Mack. I mean, he's a plug-and-play center right now at this point in the league. They signed him to a 1-year deal. He lost
and I think that's another thing. And I think that's something about. I think Alex Mack almost says something about what they think is we're bringing in a veteran center to take all the all the protection. We're gonna take all the protection. All the protection
is Trent. You got Alex Mack and McGlinchey.
That almost speaks to the Trey Lance part of it. Maybe starting the rookie thing because think about it. Like Fields knows how to call protections at the line. Mm-hmm. Mac Jones knows how to call protections at the line. Zach Wilson knows how to call protections at the line. Who doesn't? Trey Lance. Now Alex Mack. What does he do? He knows how to call protections at the line. Yep. So that's another thing. Another thing for this scenario is it's almost like foreshadowing everything that they could or could not come into like this whole scenario with the number 3 pick.
And just they lost Richard Sherman. I mean, he's an aging veteran. I think they're just moving on. Richard Sherman probably wants to change the scenery. I think that they're probably ready for a younger corner.
I think that brings me into the Keith Taylor Jr. from Washington. Taller corner.
Yeah, because they also lost to Keller Witherspoon.
Right, and I mean he's
not outside corners.
Keith Taylor Jr. is definitely an outside corner, tall, lanky. He's more man than Sherman, but still plays good zone. Lock down one side of the field. I'm keeping you over. I'm keeping you over on the left side. That's where Keith Taylor Jr. is. I'm probably starting week 1.
So you like Keith Taylor Jr.? What round do you think he goes? You think because they have a pick high in the second round? I don't think you take him high in the second round. I think there might be a better player available, maybe like an Asante or. I want to talk about Elijah Molden.
Elijah Molden, man, that's a guy that I was just posting about earlier today, man.
I just think that this team lost a lot of players on their secondary, and I think Molden gives you a lot of schematic flexibility.
I think he does. I think he's more free safety though.
See, I think he's more nickel. I think his instincts make him a nickel.
Well, the reason I say
especially with the game being
but that's why I say he's a free safety because I can drop him into the nickel and then get my other 2 corners.
Well, they have to play hard.
Yeah, I get my other 2 safeties out there. I basically run 3 safety sets to where it's like I can play Tart in the nickel. I can play Molden in the nickel. You can do a lot of things with him. You can almost do what the Washington football team with Cameron Curl, where he lined up early in the season as the nickel, and then when there was an injury, he went back to safety. Molden gives you that scheme versatility. Definitely more so than Keith Taylor. Keith Taylor's my outside corner. He's an outside corner for me. And maybe you can get Keith Taylor in the 3rd round. I just have a higher grade on him than that. Like, that doesn't mean he's not going to go in the 3rd. That doesn't mean he's not a value pick to some team in the 3rd, maybe even San Francisco.
Right.
Trust me, I hope it's not him. I hope it's us. But I mean,
me too. I hope.
Right, like we both
like Keith Taylor.
Another name I had was Ramaje Stevenson.
I had Chuba Hubbard. I think we're both kind of going the same angle.
Right. I think
they lost Tevin Coleman. They have Mozart. I mean, do you want to put all your eggs in the Mozart basket?
I don't. He's
a fun player. He's had production. But
I think Ramaje Stevenson, man, is a pull. One cut and just can catch passes. Is a steamroller, man. You put that guy in a one-cut system, man, with that offensive line, dude, and I think Ramaje Stevenson, man, that guy was electric at the second half of the season for Oklahoma this year, man. I think in Kyle Shanahan's offense, dude, with a Trey Lance or with whoever is playing quarterback, dude, you want a run game, and Kyle Shanahan knows that he's going to have a run game. Like, he's going to pick some run back in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th round, whatever. That guy's going to come in and complement Mozart very well and really make life easier for whatever quarterback is playing in that system.
I have a guy I want to talk about for a corner because I actually kind of was thinking about him when we were talking about another team. But Paulson Adebo.
Paulson Adebo, man.
He had an amazing 2018.
Freak athlete.
2019 he was hurt and then he sat out this
Freak
year.
athlete.
So he might fall victim to just, what have you done for me recently kind of thing,
Yes,
maybe. But taking him high 2nd, I mean, is that really that much of a stretch?
It's not that much of a stretch.
He's a starting baller corner. I mean, we were watching his pro day.
For his height, weight, speed, man, he is there.
Yeah, and they lost their outside corners. I mean, if you don't think that Taylor is going to be there for you when you pick 3rd, and you maybe don't want to take him in the 2nd, maybe you take an Adebo. But a lot of times when we've been talking about these things, like we have the similar position, but we just maybe have a different kind of player.
Right. Like
really, Keith Taylor's the opposite kind of pick to a Paulson Adebo. Like you're taking the low risk guy who actually played, who maybe outperformed his
what everybody thought coming into the season.
Right, and then you have Paulson Adebo, a guy who just fall victim to
throwing a dart at the like boom or bust.
And like I really haven't been scouting a lot. I mean, I haven't been mentioning names of people that sat out because
we both have kind of stuck clear of them because it's really hard, man. I mean, how do you put that guy? I mean, dude, and like honestly, but how do you knock that guy, dude? It's so unfair. It's so unfair to either side of the argument, dude.
Especially in the Pac-12 when you only played for 4 games. Right. It almost makes sense if you wanted to sit out.
Yeah, like honestly,
rather than if you're gonna play.
But it speaks to somebody. Like it's so hard. Like, do you knock that guy for real for sitting, or do you really?
It's almost just safer to just take somebody else that that played.
Right, and then it's like
that's why you take a Keith Taylor instead of a Paul.
Right, and then it's almost like a slap in the face that you played this year. And like like you shine. It's so touchy. It's a ticky-tacky year, man. It's a hard offseason, man. No combine, dude. Like the pro days are actually like the fact that they're highlighting team pro days is really, really interesting to me this year. That has really been fun for me to watch.
Yeah. Do you have any other guys that maybe we think about San Fran going on? They actually have their first round picks, so that's always nice to have for these NFC West teams.
Right? I mean, that's crazy, man. We got to talk about 2 teams with first round picks, man. As much as we love the first round picks, I mean, I think San Francisco was definitely the highlight of our show. I mean, we really broke down Arizona and just like the ledge that the line that they're teetering right now, where like that franchise is like, man, they could be going in a bunch of different directions based on this season, man. The storylines in Arizona are really going to be telling this year.
It's going to be fun to see how these quarterbacks all play out because Kyler's got a lot to prove, dude, especially with this deal coming up too. It's like, isn't this a contract year for Kyler Murray?
I think he has the
option.
The option year they have to pick up after this year.
They have
to make the decision for the next season
this year
at the end of this year.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying, man. Dude, it's funny that we were struggling how we really wanted to do this pod like before we did it, and like honestly, man, we like. we both just found it once we started doing it. It was just kind of crazy, man. Like I don't think we expected to talk about the Rams as much as we did.
No.
I think we both kind of knew we were going to talk about Arizona, but I really think we took some time with that. And then Seattle, we kind of just like had 2 different ways we could go.
Yeah.
And then San Francisco, dude, you want to talk about it? Like we had a pod. I mean, we could do another pod just on San Francisco and like the scenarios for the draft. I mean, honestly, I think that'd be fun too. It's just really, man. Honestly, dude, we all the what ifs. I mean, there's still a month left, man. We might do these divisional breakdowns, and then we might really do a San Francisco podcast where we just have fun with this. Like, like, did this guy bring in? What does that tell you? Or like, just like complete scenario breakdown about that. We could realistically, I could talk about for 3 hours about that.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think I like to move San Francisco, man. I think of all the teams that could have moved up for the quarterback, I mean, between the Broncos, the Niners, and the Panthers, I think maybe the Niners are.
I think it's just funny that we were talking about that in our mock. That like the logical team to move up was Carolina. The one that had the most smoke was Carolina, but the one that we were most excited about was the 49ers. I think Carolina has another year that they could go without a quarterback, and then next year be the exciting team to talk about for a quarterback.
Yeah.
It's just Carolina's like so early in that role that they don't have to make this move right now. Keep building the team.
EPA.
Right, like keep building the team.
If Kyle Pitts is there, don't let Mac Jones stop you from taking Kyle Pitts or.
I think it's just funny because this is we both in our mock draft and we both in like the quarterback carousel episode that we were talking about. I mean, Kyle Shanahan was like the one guy that we really did. I mean, dude, it's almost like we spoke San Francisco into this. Like it's kind of funny that they just did it. That they were the team that moved up, and we were just talking about how like any quarterback, like honestly, and now all these scenarios based on how this offseason has gone and just all the options that they have. I'm really excited to see how this draft goes now. I mean, it's honestly like. We have a bunch more divisions to break down, and honestly, like, this is one of the most exciting stories, and that's, I think, why we started with them, but we still have, like, our divisions that we really want to get into because it's a big year for both of our teams.
Yeah. Just to maybe fill you guys in on what to expect, I think we're going to handle these divisions. We're going to go around the NFC. I think we might do the NFC North, NFC South. One of those two.
We're going to end the NFC with the NFC East. That would be the fourth one for the NFC. That's a division that's really up in the air. I think the South and the North are very much in similar with the power rankings of their. There's a discrepancy in their divisions.
Yeah.
There's a couple bad teams, there's a couple good teams, and there's a couple teams that are like really on the ledge.
This is a tough division forecast.
Yeah, so this was one of the tougher ones as well. We wanted to get out of the way. Plus, so many storylines, and I don't even think we discussed half of these before the pod. It's just crazy where this one. This one took off. I'm really happy with where this pod came. Honestly, man, I just thank you guys for listening.
Yep, I think this is about to be it. Hopefully in a couple days you guys will be hearing from us again. Another divisional preview. Might be rolling out a mock draft here pretty soon, 2.0.
Yeah, so this is the Eye Test podcast, a football podcast by fans for fans. I know Stan usually takes the duty on that, but I wanted to try it once.
No, I think it sounded good.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys if you guys stuck around for the whole thing, man. Hopefully for y'all's sake that y'all actually stuck around for San Francisco, man, because I think that's just a juicy take right there, dude. Honestly, I think we had a lot of great takes. I mean, I think the LA Rams is very similar to what we were saying when they made the trade for Stafford.
Yeah. There's really not a lot of.
Dude, they are dependent on what they do this year. I think this year they really need to hit. They need to perform.
Yeah.
And for McVay, I mean, just honestly, man, a lot of things can happen.
So in conclusion, I think you could say the Rams probably have the most boomer bust in this division.
I mean, they have a lot riding on this year.
On the health of an aging quarterback and two defensive players.
Right, and I mean, McVay has taken a team to the Super Bowl, man, and Stafford has not. And honestly, man, this is. Now, I'm not saying the next year that they can't do it again, but dude, realistically, man, they have to show something that says that is where they're heading. Or man, you're really talking about not having another first-round pick next year. It's crazy, dude.
Yeah, and I think the Cardinals. I think if they knock this class out, I think you could just see.
Dude, every team but San Francisco, because of the rookie move at quarterback, is realistically with the Russell Wilson thing, with the Rams, with Stafford, with Arizona, with Kyler Murray and the Kingsbury thing, dude. Realistically, man, San Francisco, if they won this division this year, man, you're talking about a lot of turnover for these other three teams, dude. That would really.
Some heads are gonna roll,
dude. That's what I'm saying, man.
Yep.
This division can go anyway.
It's going to be fun to see how this division plays out. I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah,
you got the whole Russell Wilson saga going on. Is Pete Carroll? Is his job on the line?
Right. This podcast actually, I think we killed this podcast. Honestly, man. I know it might be tooting our horn again, but dude, this podcast came out a lot better than I thought. I thought this was a tough podcast for us to break down because of
a lot of
the divisional discrepancy in this division is just tight knit, man. Honestly, somebody has to lose, and there's so many storylines. It's just, man, I think we hit them.
Alrighty, I think that's it.
Awesome, man. Thank you guys for coming in.
Later.
Peace.